more news of yet another discovery. Can you share with us, for our viewers, what the forensic identification process is like?
Sure. And my condolences go out to all the communities, those that have found remains or graves and those that haven't yet found them. But the process is long. It requires a lot of information, it requires a lot of steps, and it requires a lot of expertise to get it done right. And the important thing is that it's done right from the start, because once you start going down this road, you can't turn around and go back. That doesn't mean that for these sites, you actually have to do exhumations. Some families in some communities may decide to memorialize sites and leave it at that. But if the process of exhumation and identification is chosen, then it's important that families understand that it's a long process. There's a lot of information that needs to be collected from a lot of different sources to actually be able to make identifications.
How long will this process take, do you think? Or can it take?
It can take decades.
Wow.
If we look at around the world, this problem is new for Canada, but it's not new elsewhere. There's a lot of countries that suffer from the problem of missing persons and have projects that are aimed at resolving this problem and resolving the fate of people that are missing. The first thing that needs to happen is there needs to be a will to address the issue. So that starts with the communities. This needs to be driven by the communities themselves, and the families need to want to do this, because we, as a forensic expert, we start to ask very personal questions about the person that's missing, about the family. It's very invasive in terms of personal information, because we need very specific details to actually be able to identify human remains. Some people aren't comfortable with that. Some people are, but it's something that the community needs to agree to, and the government needs to agree to. And so everybody needs to decide together how to approach this and what the outcome they want to be.
Let's talk more about the government's role and other agencies as well. How significant is their willingness to move ahead with this, to offer information, to provide access to records and documents? How critical is that as forensics tries to move forward with their process?
I think it's critical that the government's involved. We are looking at a death investigation. So there may not be an accountability aspect to it, but there'll still be a humanitarian slant to it. It could be either one. We don't know yet. But the government absolutely needs to be involved in the decisions on what happens and how to move forward. And they'll be fundamental to the process. The communities are fundamental, and they need to want to do this, but the government also needs to be involved.
So you've been involved in this process, I believe, for quite some time, not specifically in terms of what the residential schools are going through, or maybe you have, but what kind of potential challenges can present themselves here as folks try to seek closure? And before they seek closure, they try to seek information.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the big challenges is having everybody understand what is happening, having transparency, but with the process, so that the communities and the families understand and trust what is happening. It's fundamental to this working, is that the communities need to buy into it. If they don't believe or trust the information that's coming out of the process, then it just doesn't work. Because ultimately, they're the ones that are the beneficiaries of the whole thing. Another challenge that we'll have is actually collecting the information for the matching process. So basically what you'll have is families that are missing a loved one, and you'll have human remains that we don't know who they are. And so you're trying to match these two pieces of information together. And so you need to have information from the families about the people that are missing. And in some of the cases, they go back a long way. So
sure.
whether there's a living relative or any information about what these people looked like, any identifying features that they may have had, like a broken leg during their life, a chipped tooth, anything that can individualize one person from another is really important in the forensic identification process. And so being able to get that information from families can be really challenging when such a long time has passed.
Such a long time has passed, and also just even hearing from some of our guests tonight who were former residential school survivors, it wasn't talked about.
Yeah.
Megan, it wasn't talked about. They just wondered about a fellow classmate, and we use the term class very loosely here because, as my colleague Evan said earlier, these were not schools, right?
Yeah.
These were not schools. What does that process look like? How painful, how impossible could that potentially be when these communities weren't even allowed to acknowledge what happened?
I don't know the First Nation communities that, and what they know, but I would guess that there's internally a lot of conversation. There has been a lot of memory there. There's a lot of knowledge there that will need to be used. And that, again, it's why they're so fundamental to the process, is that they have the information that people need to be able to actually make an identification. So they cannot be sidelined. Time is critical. However, I say that, but the process has to be done right. If people just start to go and dig without following a process and without having a mechanism for the whole thing to follow, it can cause big problems, and it can cause misunderstandings, and it can cause misidentifications. The whole thing needs to be organized. It needs to be coordinated. It needs to be multidisciplinary. There'll be many different disciplines that have to be involved. We're talking about archaeology. We're talking about anthropology. Right. We're talking about psychology. And, these all need to be brought together into a project with a common goal. And that's why figuring out what that goal is right from the start is really important to do now, so that a plan can be made so that everybody understands what we are trying to achieve.
I would think that plan, I'm assuming it's coming from government. I don't know, because we also know the government's very anxious now to take their cues from the communities, right? But one would think that plan has to present itself quite quickly, because judging from tonight's program, there's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of frustration, mixed emotions, folks saying we've had to wait decades upon decades upon decades to just even have folks believe the story. And now here it is. So you got to wonder how many folks are going to sit aside and wait and wait and wait a bit more before this process really gets underway. But you're saying this has to be done critically in the right manner, in the right manner.
Yeah. And if we look at other places around the world where this has been done, there are really great examples of how to do this and how to do it effectively with different parties to the issue. So if we look at post-conflict situations, there's usually a neutral intermediary, and then there could potentially be the government, and there could be the First Nation communities, and they all discuss together what it is that they want and how to achieve it. And often you have a coordination mechanism at one level that is really political, and it's really deciding what we're trying to achieve. But then you have a forensic working group or something where all the disciplines are brought together. And it's at that point that, you're really talking about the technical aspects and how to best achieve the technical mandate.
All that's going through my mind right now, Megan, and excellent information, need to know information, especially for the communities right now that are processing the news of these atrocities. As we've been saying through the program, probably not shocking, but certainly gut-wrenching still, to say the least, right?
Yeah.
You got to wonder, a lot of these elders right? It's the elders that were, if they're still alive, and we spoke to a few of them tonight, that were in these residential school systems. How critical is it for them now to document within their family, with their trusted loved ones, what they think happened to whom back then? How critical
Sure.
is that? Because it sounds like this is going to be, like you said, a process that is going to take years.
It will take time. Yeah. I mean, having those discussions now and having somebody record the information, if somebody's critically ill, you know, getting what they know, write it down, understand what people looked like. If you know, if somebody's critically ill and they're the only person that knew somebody that was in one of these schools, then it's really important for them to record that, and to record if they had a chipped tooth, or if they had fallen off their bike and broken a leg, or, you know, anything about the person that made them, that made them unique from the next person. Because you have to appreciate that in the cemetery, the forensic experts would be looking at skeletal remains. And so you're looking for things that will make one skeleton different from another skeleton. And at that age, in a young individual, you can age them pretty accurately within a couple of years. But if it's a cemetery of a large number of young individuals, then you need to have something that differentiates them. And so that's why information about teeth and information about how tall they were, you know, anything that was specific to them. If they had, you know, something that they carried with them all the time, I don't know if those items would still be with them, but potentially they could be. And in other contexts, that's how, you know, you differentiate people.
A lot to process there. Megan Bassendale, Director of Forensic Guardians International. Need to know information, critical information. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.